Thank you so much, Mr. Ekpe, for joining us today. As you know, we are conducting a few interviews with keynotes at the Columbia Africa Economic Forum. It's our 10-year anniversary. We've been doing this for 10 years, so we're trying to document as many key important moments from the conference. So you just delivered a wonderful keynote, as far as I'm concerned, in my own opinion. You have a finance background. You've recorded more than 3 decades of success in the finance industry, but you were able to deliver your message in layman's terms where people like me, we don't have a finance background. We got it. We got the call to action. So talk to me a little bit about the catalyst for your success. I mean, you've been doing this, you've been in finance for over 3 decades. Talk to me a little bit about the catalyst for your success.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for this opportunity, and to you and the team here who've been going on with this in my view, very positive message about Africa. Because that's always not understood, that Africa is making progress.
Yes.
There are bound to be 1 or 2 setbacks as we go along, but that is not the story. The fundamental story is a very positive one. I think in terms of success is always relative. I really don't see that one has been successful. I think it has been 2 things. One is you're always part of a team, and I think I was lucky in the sense that I was fortunate in getting a team of very committed Africans of various nationalities who shared a common purpose and a common dream that Africans can make a difference.
Yes. And
that Africans have the courage to look at Africa in a very positive and pragmatic way. I think Ecobank, which again I must say is still work in progress because it's still a young institution, it's only 25 years old, has pointed to the rest of Africa and Africans that yes, we can take a bet on Africa, and that bet can be a good one.
Yes.
I think to me that's the most important message.
Yes, definitely. And you've talked a lot today about Africans investing in ourselves and doing more to tell our own stories. And it sounds like that was the framework of your work, even though it was from a finance perspective, but the framework of your work within Ecobank. As you know, it's a 10-year anniversary of the Economic Forum at Columbia. We're going to be doing this every year. We're celebrating this year a decade of partnerships, of wonderful keynotes like yours. What advice do you have for the university as we enter a new, the 11th year of doing this? What advice do you have for us? You've attended several of these conferences anyway.
Yes, I think first of all, I think the university must be congratulated on this initiative and how long they've kept it going. And I'm sure it's had to go through fairly difficult times because things don't go on for that long without having to face some form of adversity.
Yeah.
But I think my major interest is how we can take this and create a new type of African who sees Africa beyond just seeing Africa positively, takes specific action to actualize their hopes and their ambitions.
Exactly.
I think that you have here a bunch of very talented young Africans with very different backgrounds. I was speaking to some of them. I was really, really excited about the backgrounds. And the challenge for us is how do we harness that? How do we take that beyond the seminar, beyond the conferences, into changes and ambitions and missions that will impact Africa positively, maybe not in the next year or 2, but over the coming years.
Definitely.
And that to me would be the most exciting.
The most important piece. And you talked about, during your keynote and touching, leveraging what you just stated, you talked about, there are many people in the audience who are entrepreneurial inclined. They want to go back to Africa. They've gotten this, world-class education at Columbia University and now want to go back to either, start their own initiative or to work for some entity back there. But there was a point that you made, and I think it's one that has I'm yet to hear that kind of recommendation, is the fact that it may not necessarily make sense to go back. It might make sense to work for a company here, become the African expert, and then channel maybe, foreign, investment opportunities back home. Has that I mean, have you sort of seen that happen? You know, I guess it's a different kind of recommendation. It's not this, it's not the recommendations that are usually made to us who want to go back to effect change. So I guess my question more so is it possible? Is it possible? Okay.
It is possible. And I think the point I was trying to make was to move from form to substance. If you take my case, for example, I started working in Nigeria in the late 70s, right through the 80s, after I finished business school abroad. And I took the view that I wanted to go abroad after that because I thought I could help Nigeria and Africa, because I'm really fundamentally Pan-Africanist. I think where you're born is an accident. Just to do is something that you have some control over. And I thought that I could do that better working out of London. And I think most people understand now that I'm really a Pan-Africanist in the true sense of the word. And that is important because we have to look at the continent.
Yes.
The continent is not big enough for us to start dividing it unnecessarily. But if you take young people coming out now, what are their choices? One is that you get a job here, you decide to go back and become an entrepreneur, or go back and work for a company there. Now, the point I was trying to make is not that those other two are not interesting or good career prospects if you choose to go that way.
Okay.
But I think the third one that's being completely ignored is that you could do very well with a company here and help that company to expand into Africa.
Absolutely.
And that just because you stay here and decide to do that doesn't make you any less African than the guy who goes to Africa.
Absolutely.
There's almost a feeling of almost betrayal that if I don't go to Africa, I'm betraying Africa. That is not true. You're African wherever you are. And that's why I was trying to get beyond the form to say this is the substance of what we're trying to do, making change, irrespective of where you are.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful advice. I mean, your keynote, like I said, was just amazing, and you had these nuggets of wisdom that everyone, looking around the room, everyone's sort of nodding their heads in acknowledgement, and and it's wonderful to sort of end on that message, that take-home message is that you can effect change for our continent, regardless of wherever you are. So our last question, you are retired, yet you are still working.
I'm active.
You're still active. And maybe, not to sort of sound too cheeky, but talk to me a little bit about some of your projects, at least projects that you still have tentacles in or that you're still developing for the continent.
No, what I'm trying to do, first of all, when I left, when I retired from Ecobank, I took the view that I should still be engaged, but in a non-executive capacity. So my role increasingly is to support younger people who have initiatives that make sense. So, for example, I have a young chap who's got a very good mobile banking platform, and he wants to roll it out across Africa. And I think that's very exciting.
Yes.
Opportunity. So I'm working with him to get that done.
Okay.
We have a private equity firm that's looking to do Pan-African business. And the interesting thing about this is that most private equity firms going into Africa are foreign-owned.
Yes.
We're trying to create an African-owned private equity
Wonderful.
firm. With African talent. We're looking for young Africans. And we're looking for African money as well. We're saying initially let's focus on African money, mobilize that, and then it's only on top of that that later on we might go for international capital to support it.
Absolutely.
That I think is a very exciting initiative.
Yeah.
And I think the third thing that has caught my imagination is I've been approached as well to say, we have all these banks in Africa. Is there a different way of doing banking?
Yeah.
All the banks open branches, they do the normal account opening. Can we look at another approach to it? Okay, that makes banking more inclusive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is as much a challenge, an intellectual challenge, as it is an execution challenge. And what else do you need when you're retired? I know.
Absolutely. You've got so much time, but it sounds like they're all very, very, interesting projects. Definitely. It sounds like they're all wonderful projects. Thank you so much for sitting in with us today. Really appreciate you. I don't know if you'll be joining us tonight at the gala.
No, I have to catch a flight at 7:40 or thereabouts.
Okay.
So I don't think I will. I'll try and hang around as much as possible.
Okay, wonderful.
This afternoon, and then.
Thank you
But
so much.
Congratulations to you and the rest of the team. I think you guys are doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ekpe.